Hi everyone, this is how I change the oil in my XC90. I have a pan capable of holding at least 2 gallons of used motor oil. I've got the replacement filter cartridge and the replacement O-ring for the cartridge cover. I have the 5W30 oil. You'll need at least 6 quarts. And then you also need 2 types of wrenches. You need a socket wrench and a box wrench. You need a 17 millimeter box wrench for the drain plug, and you need a 10 millimeter socket wrench to take the splash guard off the bottom of the vehicle. I also take a large piece of cardboard and I use it to slide underneath the vehicle. It catches oil drips, plus it provides a comfortable thing for me to lay on while I'm working underneath the vehicle. I do use the jack to raise the vehicle up just slightly. It makes it a little easier for me to get under there. Please practice safety while you're doing this. Now the first thing we have to do is remove the splash guard. It's a large plastic cover underneath the vehicle between the 2 front tires, and it has 7 of these 10 millimeter head bolts on it. In a minute I'll show you exactly where those 7 bolts are. So that's what you need the 10 millimeter socket wrench for. Here's a picture of the splash guard taken off, and you can see the 7 different locations of the 10 millimeter bolts. All right, once the splash guard is removed, then we can slide under the vehicle. And near the back where we took the splash guard off, you'll see the big aluminum oil pan or drain pan, and that on the back of that is the 17 millimeter drain plug. So we'll want to remove that. Have your pan to catch the used oil ready to go underneath that. Once the oil's been drained from there, we now want to move on to the oil filter cartridge. So you have this plastic cover right here. It's got like 8 or 10 kind of flat-sided grips on it, and they make a tool that fits right on top of it. Which is helpful for getting that off of there. You might be able to get it off by hand, but it would be pretty tough. So I use that tool with the socket wrench to turn it counterclockwise to remove it. At some point you'll get it loose enough to where you can actually remove the tool and then just finish it by hand. Have the drain pan ready to go, because there will be a lot of dripping oil coming out of this, and it's almost inevitable that you'll get some on your hands too, so you might want to have a few shop towels handy to wipe your hands off. So drain that out. Now usually the paper cartridge will still be attached to the bottom of the engine. So once you get the cover out of the way, then you'll want to go back and pull that paper cartridge off. And just kind of wiggle it back and forth. There's a little metal stub, I'll show you in just a second. There's a little metal stub that comes out of the bottom of the engine that paper cartridge slides up onto and kind of... All right, let's take a look at that. See that little like 1-inch stub there? Or maybe not even 1 inch, like 3/4 inch. That's where the new cartridge is going to go. Okay, so let's go get out our new cartridge. And the rubber O-ring too. We'll deal with that in just a second. All right, on your cartridge cover, the black plastic thing you took off, there is a rubber O-ring on the thread area. And you'd use something like a small screwdriver or some kind of pointed tool to get under there and take that old one off of there. Now there's an important point I want to make. When you put the new one on, a newbie mistake is to immediately think that you should take the new rubber ring and slide it over the threads and roll it all the way to the bottom where it hits the lip, you know, where the plastic switches from the threads to the smooth. But there's actually a little space about 1/4 inch before that lip, and that's where the ring goes. So watch as I put this on. You'll notice there's a little space above the lip. There's about 1/4 inch space between the lip and where the rubber ring actually goes. Right, because if you push it all the way to the bottom, you will most certainly have leaks once you start the engine back up. Try to get as much of the oil off of the cover as you can before you start to put it back on, because when you put it back on, you are only going to want to tighten it by hand. Your new replacement cartridge should just fit right up on top of that 3/4 inch stub I showed you a minute ago, and it should stay by itself. Then follow with the cover and thread it up. Tighten it as much as you can by hand, but do not use the tool I was showing you earlier. You only want to tighten by hand. I use some kind of a cloth or a towel sometimes. It gives me a better grip. All right, now we're going to go and put our drain plug back on. Because the drain plug goes into an aluminum pan, it is possible to strip it out if you don't use care. So what I recommend doing is starting the drain plug bolt by hand, meaning just use your fingers to get it started. This will prevent you from accidentally cross-threading it, because you won't be strong enough with your hand to put it in wrong. Once you feel it start to go ahead and thread it all the way to the bottom. Then you can follow up with the 17mm box wrench to finish tightening it. And the amount of torque you should be using is 25 torque pounds. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't use a torque wrench when I do these. I just kind of feel it by hand. I will say this, there is such a thing as too tight, because you can strip out the drain plug. So don't overdo it. Next, I'm going to go and add my oil. Now, remember I jacked up the side of the vehicle earlier? At this time, I would want to reduce the jack to where the vehicle is now level. And if you've got a funnel, I recommend it. You could make one like I did by just simply taking an old quart container and just cutting the bottom off. That will work too. Also, when you're adding your oil, be careful not to go too fast, because you can end up getting in a situation where you're pouring it so fast that it begins to back up out of the top of the oil fill port on the top. So keep an eye on both where you're pouring it and as you're pouring it to make sure it doesn't come out too fast. Then I start the vehicle and I look underneath to see if there's any leaks. All right, so I haven't put the splash guard back on yet. I'm checking for leaks. I used to let the vehicle run for about a minute, then I shut it off, and now it's time to check the oil level. There's a little red ring attached to the oil dipstick in the front there. Take it out, wipe it off, put it back in, and remember the engine is off, so we're checking the oil with the engine off, and then you'll see some little shaded area there. It doesn't come out well on the camera, but you'll see kind of like a XXX shaded area right there. You want to be somewhere in the middle of that, preferably on the higher end of that. Then just put your splash guard back on and you're ready to go.